Hi artists! Welcome back to our family workshops. My name is Alessa and I'm a teaching artist at LACMA, and I can't wait to show you all today's art project because it's going to be very cool but also very different. Today we're going to be learning about assemblage art, and we're also going to be learning about Maura Bendett's work. She's an artist that uses nature as her main source of inspiration. So today's project is going to be all about storytelling and building and assembling, all centered around one theme. Now, I hope you all are ready, so let's put on our artist aprons and get creative. This artwork is titled Fer-de-Lance, and it was done by Maura Bendett. A lot of her artwork is inspired by nature, how it's wild and uncontrolled, but at the same time also beautiful and delicate. When she was younger, Maura would spend hours observing insects and reading nature encyclopedias. Do you see any of that inspiration on this piece? Do any of the little clusters remind you of some type of insect maybe? A lot of her ideas also come from more mystical sources, like futuristic plant forms, Martians, and alien life. Fer-de-Lance, which is the name of this piece, is also the name of a highly venomous snake. What do you think the connections are between this snake and her piece? Does it help tell a story? Does it maybe help give a theme? Now it's finally time to make our assemblage sculpture. These are the materials that you will need for today's project. First, we need a clear plastic bottle. Just make sure it's clear. Then we need a small personal item from nature. So if you maybe went on a hike and you found a really cool rock, or maybe you went to the beach and you found some really pretty seashells, that's what we're gonna be using. So I went on a trip recently with my family to the beach, and so I got these really cool seashells, and I will be using that. We will also need some thin wire. Make sure it's thin, that way we can move it around really easily and that we could cut it with scissors. If you need to buy it, it's going to be 22 or 24 gauge. We will also need some scissors and a hole puncher. If you don't have a hole puncher, that's okay. We can use scissors to make the holes. We will also need liquid glue. Any kind of liquid glue is fine. A water cup with a brush. Now I already have a little bit of water inside of the cup. You just need a very small amount of water. We will also need some colored tissue paper. Make sure you get a variety of colors or whatever you have at home. And then also some beads. Now this is optional if you want to decorate it at the very end. So if you don't have beads, that's okay. You could also use jewelry. And if you don't have colored tissue paper, you could use newspapers, or you could also just color it with markers. Now go ahead and pause the video so you have time to collect all of these materials. And once you have everything collected, go ahead and press play. Now before we begin our sculpture, let's brainstorm a little bit. I'm gonna start moving everything out of the way so I have enough space. And let's start brainstorming. Now, what was your personal item? So everybody take a look at your personal item. What is it? Since mine was seashells, that's going to be my theme for the whole sculpture. My theme will be seashells. Now, maybe you chose a rock, so that will be your theme. If you chose a plant or a flower, then that's going to be your theme. But since I chose seashells, that's going to be my theme. Now, where can we find seashells? We can find seashells in the ocean, or maybe in the beach too. So I also want to include these two things in my sculpture. Right, so we want to make sure that whatever we're sculpting, whatever we make, follows a theme, right? And so since my theme is seashells, that comes from the ocean and from the beach. And also, when I think of the beach, I mostly think of the colors blue, white, and yellow for the sun. So when I start doing my sculpture, I want to make sure I include these 3 colors only, right? Because since it's all about the beach and the ocean and the seashells, these are the 3 colors that go with it. If you chose a rock, then maybe the colors would be brown and red and maybe more earthy colors. If you chose a plant, then maybe it would be green and yellow and maybe like a light blue. So these 3 colors, or whatever colors you decide, it depends on your theme. It depends on whatever personal item you chose, right? So since I chose seashells, that's my theme, and I want to include all of these colors in my sculpture. But whatever colors you choose to include on your sculpture depends on your personal item. Now that we've got our theme figured out, we can set that aside and we can finally start on our project. So the first step is that we will be using the clear plastic bottle, and then we will also need our scissors. And what we're going to start doing is we're going to first cut out the bottom part of the bottle very carefully. And you always want to think back to our theme. So since my theme is seashells, I'm going to cut it in a wavy pattern. That way it kind of fits with the ocean theme. So go ahead and start cutting. Now that we have the bottom part cut out, you can throw this part away. We won't be using this again. And then we want to make another cut somewhere in the middle. So we're going to cut the water bottle again, and again try to fit your theme. So I'm going to do more wavy lines. Maybe if you chose a rock, you could do zigzags like a mountain. So you can cut it however you decide, just make sure it stays with the theme. And now that we have both of our pieces, you can set one aside. And then now is when we will need the water cup with the brush and some liquid glue. Now we're going to create a mixture with water and glue. So you want to make sure that however much water you have, you're going to pour the same amount of glue inside of the water cup. And then you mix it all together, and it creates like a liquidy glue paste. And this mixture is what we will use to start gluing the tissue paper onto the bottle. And you want to make sure we mix it really, really well. That way the water and the liquid combine. And it should be like a liquidy white color. And I'm gonna keep mixing. And then once that is done, we can start covering both the top and the bottom with the tissue paper. Now again, we wanna make sure we're following our theme. So I will only use blue, white, and yellow tissue paper to cover both the top and the bottom. So the way that we do it is we're going to just rip the paper. We don't need scissors. And I'm just gonna go ahead, rip the paper. Then I will place it on top of the bottle. And then with the liquid brush, we can just go ahead and paint on top of it. Put the liquid glue on top of the tissue paper and cover everything. Want to make sure every piece gets covered with the liquid glue. And then we can move on, and you're gonna do this whole thing, cover the whole thing with tissue paper for the top and the bottom. Once you're done covering both the top and the bottom of the clear plastic bottle with the tissue paper, go ahead and set it out somewhere, maybe outside or somewhere where it gets a lot of sun. That way it could dry. And once it's dry, you can go ahead and play the video, okay? So for now, go ahead and pause the video and we can wait for both of these pieces to dry. And once you are ready, go ahead and press play. So now that both of our pieces have finally dried up, we are going to start using the hole puncher, the scissors, and the wire. So the first step is that using the hole puncher, we're gonna cut a couple of holes all along this bottom part, and we're gonna do the same thing with the top of this piece and with the bottom of this piece. So go ahead and start using your hole puncher and start punching some holes. And if you don't have a hole puncher, ask an adult to help you cut some holes with the scissors. Now that we have all of the top and bottom pieces hole punched, we want to make sure we could just figure out how it went together. So for example, when I put the bottle back together again, it should fit like this. So we want to make sure we just know where that's going to be. And now we're going to use the wire, and maybe you want to start off cutting like an arm's length. Use the scissors to cut. And now what we're gonna do is, using the wire, we're gonna connect the top and the bottom pieces, but we wanna make sure we leave like a little space between them. So we're gonna make sure to leave a couple of inches of space. And I'm gonna start, and you can just go ahead and start connecting the wires. The top and bottom pieces with the wire, if you have the beads, you can go back in and add the beads to the wire to give it a more colorful, more decorative effect. But remember, the only thing to keep in mind is to always think back on your theme. So since my theme was the beach and seashells, that's why I chose colors like white, light blue, and dark blue. So make sure whatever beads you choose to add, it also fits your theme. So now that we have both pieces connected, we're gonna start adding some more wire in the bottom part. And this time you can have more fun with it. You can make it like a more sculpture form. You could give it a more squiggly form. So you can shape this wire however you want. It's just gonna be decorative. And if you want, you can also add more beads to this bottom part. So now that you've added the decorative wire and the beads for the bottom part of the sculpture, now the very last step is to add those personal items from nature that we talked about in the beginning of the video. So we're gonna add that to the bottom of the sculpture using the wire again. So you wanna make sure you get a good long piece of wire, and then you're going to wrap it around your object, and you want to make sure it's wrapped around really well so it doesn't slide. And then once it's wrapped around, you're gonna hang it right there from the middle of the water bottle. After you finish attaching your two personal items, you are done with your sculpture, but the only thing left to do is that in order for us to be able to hang these beautiful sculptures, We also want to add some wire to the very top of the water bottle where the bottle cap is. That way you can hang it somewhere near the light. Maybe you can hang it near a light source or near the window. That way when the light reflects, you see all these really cool colors that the tissue paper and the beads created. So in order to do that, we're gonna get some wire. We're very gently going to wrap it around the neck of the water bottle. We want to give it a couple twists to make sure it's nice and tight so nothing falls off. And then once that's done, you can just create a little loop at the very top. That way you have something to hang it by. And then again, just tie it back to the neck of the water bottle. And you want to make sure we twist those wires around so everything is nice and secure. And now that you have a little hanger, now you can find somewhere sunny or somewhere with a lot of light to hang up your assemblage sculpture. Thank you so much for joining us in these creative art workshops. I had so much fun building and assembling this really cool nature-inspired sculpture. My favorite part was when we got to add the personal item at the very end of the project, which made it that much more special. I hope you all keep finding ways to use nature as your inspiration. Don't forget to click subscribe below and keep coming back for more fun art projects. Bye everyone!